So the more that you think that what you've got is a really unique situation, I think the more you're closing yourself off to potentially really positive solutions. They want a certain thing. And so they are being somebody else and doing something different.
Yes.
So that they can have what they think they want.
I think we get stuck in that trap of, I need to do this.
Yeah.
To have this, so that then I can be this.
Welcome to the Mastermind for Business podcast. In this episode, we're going to be talking about the importance of course correcting. One of the things that I see people getting kind of wrong is waiting until the end of a project or the end of an extended period of time before they look at how they're performing. And we're going to talk about what are the things you can do to course correct as you go. Let's get that underway right now.
If you want more time, money, freedom, and have a business that's not reliant on you, then you're in the right place. Each week, Mark Creedon, along with some of the very best business minds in the world, will take you through simple, practical steps you can take to create the business you always wanted. From his own practical experience, Mark will show you how to work less, make more, and get the business you always wanted, the one that you deserve. Now here's your host, one of Australia's most sought-after business coaches, Mark Creedon.
All right, so in the chair with me, we've got Nick. Hello, Nick. How are you, mate?
Good, thank you.
One of the things that I discovered recently was I was talking to a client and they had a whole bunch of projects underway. But when we started to talk about how profitable the project was or each project was, they said, well, I can't really answer that until the project's finished. Right?
Right.
Which means whilst they were making good money, as in there was good money in the bank, they didn't really know how effective that money-making project was
until it's finished.
Until it was finished.
Right.
And it was really interesting because the analogy I used was this. Imagine if you were building a house and you didn't take into account all of the various stages along the way. So, you'd check at the time the slab's laid, or you'd check at the time that the frame goes up before the roof goes on or the windows go in, etc., that you are tracking that your costing is right? If you waited till the end of the build and you didn't, do variations along the way, you could find that, you'd charged $800,000 to build a house that actually cost you $1 million to build.
Right.
So this is essentially what was happening in this business is they were building something, but they weren't checking along the way. They weren't course correcting.
Okay.
So talking to Brett Warren from Metropole, and he was saying that it's the same in property investing, right? You can't just set up your property investment portfolio and set it and forget it. When people talk about setting and forgetting concept, you've actually got to check, as each year goes, you've got to review your portfolio and see how it's traveling. And the analogy he uses is aeroplanes. So he says, whatever percentage of the time, 70% of the time, aeroplanes are actually off course. But the pilots or even the autopilot has to constantly bring them back on. They go off course because of environmental influence.
Whatever things are happening, yeah.
Yeah, right. So they have to be brought them back onto course.
Mm-hmm.
And yet what we often do in our own business is we don't actually stop and course correct.
Yeah, I think it's hard when you're in the thick of it too, isn't it?
Yeah.
Everything's going so fast, it seems like, anyway.
It's a really good point you say, because I think that's right. If you're in the trenches, it's really hard to get out of it. So probably lesson number one, I think, to pull out of that is to go, do you know what? When you're working on a project, as you map out your plan for the project, you have to set some time aside to just stop, stand back, take stock. How are we traveling?
Reassess.
Yep.
It's so important, isn't it?
Yeah. So let's just delve into your world for a minute, in the world of video direction. Imagine if you said, okay, I'm going to charge, I'm just pluck a figure, right? I'm going to charge $1,000 to produce this great video.
Sure.
And you didn't do any planning for it.
No.
And you just rolled up and started shooting, thinking to yourself, oh, this will take half a day. And then next minute, you've started at 9 o'clock in the morning and at 6 o'clock at night because you haven't stopped and corrected things along the way because the things have just overrun.
It's now a completely different job.
Right. See, that's the thing. It is a very different job and it's a different cost point.
Yep.
So the point we're making here is I think there's that when you're engaging in projects, you actually have to stop and course correct. And really, there's great value in stopping and course correcting your business. So a couple of episodes we spoke about the stuff that came out of Sharan Shrivastava, and one of them was the concept of asking your team that big question: if we started over again, what would we do? And he says he asks that of his team twice a year. I think that you could actually do that. I mean, sure, you can do that, but I think you can actually stop and ask yourself that on a more regular basis in your business.
Okay. Yep.
We go, all right, hang on. How's this progressing? What are we doing here? How's this? Are we on track? This is where we want to be. We want to build a $1 million business or a $10 million business, and we want to do that in 3 years. Well, I don't want to look at that in 3 years' time and find out that I'm 80% behind my target, right?
I think there's nothing worse when you look back to, maybe some old notes or something that you've written yourself, and you see a couple of goals that you may have set or tasks that you've had on your list, and you realize the time that it has passed and you didn't get there, or you didn't achieve it, you didn't set out do what you said you were going to. So there's nothing worse than that feeling. So I guess it's almost good to, reassess and check in with yourself.
Yep.
And update yourself as to where you are, so that you can, maybe tweak a little bit here or there as to where you're heading.
Yeah, and I think that's that concept, Nick, of course correcting as you go, as opposed to waiting for something to finish.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And if you can actually course correct as you go, the likely, if we use that plane analogy that Brett refers to, the likelihood that you're going to veer substantially off course now becomes minimal.
Yeah. Yeah. You're almost avoiding that as much as possible.
Right. So you imagine if a plane took off from Brisbane flying to Melbourne and they never course corrected on the way, they'd land in Adelaide.
Poor buggers.
Right. Oh, with apologies to all of our Adelaide
Sorry,
listeners.
everybody in Adelaide.
Mate, some great red wines down there. So, I mean, that's what would happen. So they have to correct as we go. And it was just I guess it was a bit of an eye-opener for me, or a bit of a reminder, I might say, of the importance of course correcting. I saw these guys had done an amazing job in their business, but they just hadn't course corrected as they went.
Right. Yeah.
And I think it's a kind of an easy trap. The other easy trap to fall into is, and gosh, I've seen this so many times, is not knowing your numbers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Something shocking.
Yeah. So one of the reasons people don't course correct is because they don't think there's anything wrong. Mm. So and I have to say, I see this a lot, particularly in people that it's just, mum and dad in a business, or, just a couple of people in business, and how they look at their figures is by looking at their bank account, right? How's your business going? Yeah, it's good. I've got plenty of money in the bank account.
Yeah.
But what they haven't done is stopped and gone, oh, hang on a second. I've got this amount of money in the bank account. What's in my pipeline? What do my debtors look like? What do my creditors look like? Do you know? Yep. So that's, you've got to actually have your head around all of that so you can course correct, because, and you would know this only too well, a healthy bank balance can become an unhealthy bank balance very, very quickly.
Very quickly,
right?
Yes.
So it becomes very quickly if you haven't stopped and sort of reassessed, course corrected.
Yeah.
Then I think you fall into that trap. So the big thing that I really wanted to get across in this little section here, mate, was to talk about, if you are working in your business, if you've got a particular project you're working on at the moment, some specific that you're attending to, just stop and ask yourself, when was the last time I looked at the financial viability or the profitability of this particular thing that I'm doing? And don't wait till it's finished to then look back and go, oh, crap. If only I'd put in a variation, or if only I'd, put some extra hours into that, or if only I had cut back some of the overheads on that, it could have turned into a profitable job.
And I think sometimes it's, you really kick yourself because you realize it was totally achievable.
Yeah.
It was something that was completely achievable, something or completely avoidable.
Yep.
And whatever it is, you think, if I just made that little tweak, if I had just, as you said, put in those couple of extra hours, shifted my focus to where it needed to be.
Yep.
If I had course corrected, then I wouldn't be sitting here.
Yeah.
So I think it's really key to make sure that you are. And something for me, I think I really like to get a second opinion.
Yep.
So, whether you're bouncing it off your spouse or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I think getting that second opinion, hey, do you think this is where I'm at?
Yep. Yep.
Do you think where I'm heading here is where we want to be, where we want to go?
It's the great power of some kind of a mastermind or a community.
Yeah, definitely. Everyone in the same boat.
Yeah, and I'm not talking about networking events here, right? I'm not talking about where people are just trying to get more work or from you, or you're trying to get more work from them. I'm talking about mastermind or communities where you get two things, and I think what you want is you want shared wisdom, where people are actually prepared to share with you their successes and their wins and their losses and their learnings, and collective momentum. So there's great value in everybody, and you just said it before, everybody's kind of heading in the same direction, and you get caught up in that momentum, that collective momentum of everybody moving forward. And then it's great to be able to sit down with those other people and go, hey, listen, can you just check me on something?
How many people have been where you are?
Yeah.
You know, you're having an existential crisis, the biggest problem you've ever had within your business. How many times someone else has had that exact same problem? You know what I mean? And I think that's a really powerful thing to have colleagues or people around you that have already experienced it.
Yeah. You know what? We often talk about the similarities between business and sport, but I reckon there's a bucket load of similarities between business and parenting.
Yeah, yep,
right?
Definitely.
So if I look at, for me, I've made a shit ton of mistakes in my life. One of my hopes is that you don't make those mistakes, and I hope that I've made them for you.
Well, that's the old parenting thing, isn't it? It's, we're trying to do better than the ones before us.
Exactly.
You tried to do better than your father. I'll try to do better than my father, and it goes down the line.
Exactly.
My son will try and do better
Connolly
than I did.
and Eloise will try and do better than you.
That's just how it works.
So it's interesting because you're right, because I look at some things and I know, you and I might talk from a parenting point of view, and you might go, as you say, this is like an existential crisis and my world's crumbling around me, and I can go, no, it's all right, mate, because, been through that, done that, give you some advice on it.
Yeah.
And that, again, with business, that's the power of a mastermind. It's the power of having a tribe of some sort around you, whether it's just a bunch of mates who are in business, whether it's something formal like we do in our Mastermind Business Accelerator program, or whether it's just a local community of people that are running businesses near each other. That
100%. You catch
Chamber
up
of Commerce.
It's really powerful to have a wide range and variety of those people as well. People who have had those losses, who have had those wins, people who are kicking goals right now.
Yep.
Because it just serves so many purposes to you, doesn't it? The benefit of being in a group like that isn't just so that you can, lean on someone's advice or someone who's been through a similar situation, but, someone who's doing stuff that you're not.
Yeah.
It serves as inspiration for where you maybe want to be or what you want to do. And that's just as powerful.
It's funny, mate, because one of the things that if I go to a business event, and I'm an introvert at heart, I don't really like going to those events, but if I do, I love to find someone who's doing better than me. And it's amazing, Nick, the number of times I've been even at a business lunch or a fundraising event, a charity event, and I see somebody, at another table, and I go, I know who they are and I know how well they've done. And when you go and approach them, it's amazing how approachable they are and how open they are.
Yeah.
Do you know, I've gone up to, quite famous CEOs or MDs and just said, look, what would I have to do to grab a coffee with you at some stage? And can I tell you, to a person, the answer's always been, you buy and we're on.
Yeah.
Do you know? So I've had coffee with some great people just because I've been at an event, years gone by and said, hey, is there any chance I could buy you a coffee? Because I'd love to know.
Taking the opportunity, right?
Yeah. I'd love
the shot.
to have it taken the shot. Was it Michael Jordan? Miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
That's it.
Yeah. All these analogies. I love it. The other thing, so let's just quickly talk about, we've spoken about the fact that you need to course correct, right? So as you're working in your business, as you're working, whether it's a specific project or in your business generally, you just got to stop for a moment, take stock and go, hang on a second, how is this actually tracking?
Yeah.
How am I doing? How's it traveling? And let's make sure you've got that right. And then the other thing was part of that process is to seek the opinion of other people as well.
Yeah, bounce it off someone.
Yeah.
It's a lonely world sometimes, running a business.
It is a lonely world.
And it can seem like it's all on your shoulders, the weight of the world.
Yep.
I think if we're able to find the opinion, whether it's even just someone giving the same opinion as yours and making you feel like you were right as always.
Vindicating it. Yep.
Yeah, that's right. I think that's just as as powerful anyway, because you can then sit there in confidence knowing that you actually do know what you're talking about. So that is a great thing to do, and I think having someone there, or even bouncing off someone who's gone through it before, or been going through the same thing now, you can work it out together.
I was chatting with your sister today.
God, you poor bugger. No. You all right?
I was chatting with your sister today, and I said to her, I want to get your advice on something because for 3 reasons. 1, you support me. 2, sometimes I think you're my harshest critic, and I mean that in a good way.
I think she's everyone's harshest critic sometimes.
Hey, Sam, if you're listening. And number 3, I know you'll be really honest with me, because I think that's the other thing, Nick. What you don't want is to bounce things around with somebody who's just going to tell you what you want to hear.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you do, and sometimes I do it for editing. When I'm editing a video,
Yep.
Sometimes I'll finish the video. I think I'm finished. Got
looks
a
great.
rough draft. Looks
How
great.
good am I?
Okay. So I'll go get my partner Dee, who is a creative sort as well.
Yep.
And she has a good eye for things like that. And I'll show her the video and she'll pick out something.
Yep.
And maybe initially I'll be frustrated by it.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. But I'll find a way. But then in the end, I see it.
Yep.
And I realize that she's right, and
Yep.
it was valuable.
Yeah.
I end up changing it that way, and it looks much better. So
Yep.
sometimes an outside perspective is really powerful as well, because they can just see those things that maybe you might be a little bit blinded to, and maybe they can open your eyes to things that maybe you don't want to see.
Right. So, because, not only is Dee creative, but she's like brutally honest.
Yes,
Do you know what I
that's
mean?
right. Yeah, she's going to tell me.
She ain't going to tell you what you want to hear, mate.
No.
She's going to tell you what you need to hear.
Yes.
And, as a coach, one of the things that, there's a bit of a saying about, can I be your unreasonable friend? We were at one of our intensives a couple of months ago, last month it was, and there was one of the guests at the intensive, and he sort of kept on a certain path by saying how different his business was, right? And then time came to ask a question in the room, and he started with, the difference is my business is so different. And I remember just going, do you know what, mate? I don't mean to be rude, right? But I've heard that 100 times in the last 24 hours, and honestly, it's just bullshit. It's just bullshit. Your business is no different to every other business in this room.
Every business is different, but they're all the same, right?
Yeah, 100%. So, sure, there's some nuances in your business,
of course.
the way it runs, the cash flow, whatever it might be, the timing of things is different, but the principles don't change. And I think the more you think that you're unique, or your business is unique, or your problem is unique, like you said before, right? You're having your biggest existential crisis ever, and somebody else is sitting there going, man, that's
nothing, mate.
That's a piece of cake.
Yeah.
I can solve that.
Did that 3 times last week.
Yeah, exactly. So the more that you think that what you've got is a really unique situation, I think the more you're closing yourself off to potentially really positive solutions.
I think it's just used as an excuse a little bit too, isn't it?
Good reminder of not wanting to be the smartest man in the room. Hey? What's it say? If you're the smartest man on your team, you're on the wrong team.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Hey, Nick, I saw this great little thing the other day, and it was about the concept of be, do, have. You'll get this because you often hear people and they say, they use those 3 words in a certain order. They go, oh, you know what? If I could have this, I'd be able to do that, and then I'd be happy.
Right.
Right? Or if I could do this,
then I could have
I could have that,
Yeah.
and then I'd be successful.
Right.
But I think that's kind of getting it completely ass about. I think instead, if we went, do you know what? If I can be this, it will enable me to do that, and then I can have success or happiness.
So it's just switching it around essentially.
It's about you being your authentic self.
Yeah.
And I had a conversation with Ronsley Vaz from We Are Podcast, the producers of this podcast. And, I was talking about this concept with Ronsley, and he sort of went, yeah, dude, you've got to just be your authentic self. You've got to be who you are.
Yeah.
And if you can be who you are, then you will find it super easy to do what it is that you need to do in order to have what it is you want to have. Yeah.
Yep.
Because when you think about it, when you're not being your authentic self, and we've both been in those situations where you're doing a shit job you hate, Right?
You feel like you have to be someone else or something else.
Yeah, you're role playing because that's what you've got to.
Yeah.
That's what you feel at the time that you've got to do.
Yeah.
But it's always a little bit like swimming upstream. Yeah.
Yeah. It always makes things a lot harder, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. So if instead you could just be your authentic self, then you can stop that swimming upstream thinking. Be your authentic self. Do the things that come naturally to you, and it will bring you the things that you want to have.
Yeah, and from what I took from it too is it seems like it's a bit of a mental thing. You know, I think we get stuck in that trap of, I need to do this,
Yep.
to have this, so
Yep.
that then I can be this.
Yep.
For me, you know, why wait?
Yeah.
If
Yep.
you want to be that thing, start being it.
Yep.
Start
Yep.
being it. Then you'll start doing the things that those people do.
Yep.
And then you'll start to have what you want.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, the other thing too is often I think people think that they think they want a certain thing. And so they are being somebody else and doing something different
Yes.
so that they can have what they think they want. But if
Yep.
if they picked that up and reversed it and just started being truly authentic to themselves and doing the things that are in line with that authenticity, then what they end up having might actually make them a whole lot happier than it might actually be what they want.
Yeah, and it will be like, you know, without overusing the word authentic, but it will be authentic.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we reach a goal and we go, why don't I feel satisfied? I have what I was searching for. Why don't I feel satisfied? But maybe it's because you haven't been authentic to yourself to get there in the first place.
Yeah, yeah,
You know, and if you were to achieve it authentically to yourself and done the things that, you know, as you said, align with your authentic self, then that end goal would just be so much more satisfying.
yeah. I was on a Zoom session, Zoom webinar with Taki Moore, and he was saying that when he first started his business, he just followed Dan Kennedy, right? So Dan Kennedy said, you know, produce this number of emails, send this number of emails, or it wasn't emails back in the day, you know, handwrite letters or whatever, post those out, do this, do that, and he just did exactly what Dan said because he thought that was the way that he could grow his business because he looked at, well, hang on, Dan's got
It's working, right?
right, it's working. It's got an amazing business, amazing success. So I'm just going to follow that.
Yeah.
You know, the only problem was he hated writing stuff. Right?
Yep.
He much prefers to speak stuff.
Yeah.
He hated posting things. He hated having that structure. He wasn't being who he was. So in the end, he built a business he didn't like.
Yeah, and I think the results would reflect that.
Yeah, well, it's really interesting because he even spoke about, and I sort of watched his business as well, but you know, he spoke about the fact that that got him to a certain point, and I think it's okay. It's okay to just mimic
To a certain point.
when your business first gets up and running. Go find someone who's doing it really well.
Because you do have to find your own way, don't you?
Correct.
To find your own style and mold it into something that's your own. And everyone takes inspiration and bits and pieces from someone else. It's a given.
But there comes a time when you got to stop being a cover band,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And you got to produce your own originals.
Yeah.
The funny thing about that, I think, is if you produce your own originals, whether they're good or whether they're shit, if you're having fun doing it and you're enjoying
Still yours.
it's still yours, right?
Yeah. 100%.
So it was really interesting that he spoke about, you know, moving off that cover band concept of just doing whatever Dan Kennedy said and then creating his own thing. And what happened was his level of satisfaction increased
Yeah.
dramatically. I covered a few good things, right? So we've spoken about the importance of course correcting, getting some guidance, mentors, a feedback loop along the way.
Yes.
The importance of not looking at things around the concept of, you know, if I have this, I'll be able to do this and then I'll be, or if I do this, I'll have this and I'll be, but rather being authentic and going, you know what, if I can just be this, I'll be able to do this and that'll get me that.
Yeah. I think that's really something that you can start implementing straight away.
Yep.
Isn't it?
Well, and you know, that's what this is all about. Like at the end of the day, what I really want for everybody listening to this podcast is to pick up something and go, yeah, do you know what? I can implement that. I can do that. So start thinking about your authentic self. And you know, the other thing I'd really love you to do is guys, if you're listening to this and you can see how you can implement this, or you'd like to know something more, do a couple of things. Give us some feedback. Jump on the socials, give us some feedback. Subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to the YouTube channel, but give us some feedback about how it's working for you. Have you actually been operating not in your authentic self, and what's it like to change that? Love to hear more about that, and also more about what topics you'd like to cover. Hey, Nick, good to chat.
Always.
It's always good. Always appreciate having you there. This is the Mastermind for Business podcast. Until we speak next time, please make sure you spend time with those who matter most, and we'll talk very soon.